Welcome to the Outrage Science Bites podcast, a companion podcast to the Outrage Overload podcast. This is day 2 of our 30-day challenge to produce an episode every day in the month of November. The challenge hashtag is NaPodPoMo. NaPodPoMo. I think I got that right. It's crazy, but that's what it is. A 30-day challenge. We're posting an episode every day this month. This episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about cross-cutting social groups. And this is a somewhat controversial term, or it's a term that's used in many different ways. And for the most part, when we're talking about it, when the experts are talking about this concept on our show, it emphasizes participating in non-political social groups or social interactions. And it helps us connect based on some kind of shared interest other than a political affiliation. Now, that's not the only way people use that term, so that's one reason why I'm kind of talking about this a little bit. Some of the research shows is that if you can participate in something non-political, some kind of a social group, social interactions with folks that are affiliated without political affiliations. In other words, people that maybe on somewhere else on the political spectrum. If you're red, then somebody that's blue, and vice versa. And yet you're coming together to do something that not politically related, and you're sharing some interest or sort of a separate identity in this cross-cutting social group. And what we find from those interactions is you can, of course, it helps to humanize those people. Now, it can go sideways, right? Because sometimes if the politics start to come into it, if you start to pick up social cues or other cues related to political affiliations, you start ascribing political affiliations to them, and the thing can sort of derail. But in an ideal situation, if you have an enjoyable situation, like you're going to go participate in a sporting event that you both like, or sports activities that you like, or other activities that you enjoy, gaming, computer gaming, something like that, where you're having fun with this person and you're seeing them as a regular person, this can really lower some of those misperceptions about those on the other side. And that's what we're often talking about when we're talking about cross-cutting social groups. I think another thing I'll talk about on this episode of Outrage Science Bites is affective polarization. And you've heard that term a lot if you listen to the Outrage Overload podcast. And what we're talking about with affective polarization is polarization that's not based on issue differences, but it's based on, sometimes it's called negative polarization. So it's based on a dislike and a distrust of the other people, the other side, people on the other side. And this kind of polarization is what we talk about a lot on our podcast. And this is part of what I'm talking about when I talk about lowering the temperature, is reducing some of that animosity, and I think making it easier to see other people as more human, less evil, and that reduces the likelihood of an emotional reaction to everything and possibly opens up some dialogue. I think I'll finish with another type of phenomenon called selective exposure. So this refers to our tendency to seek out information that aligns with our existing beliefs and avoid information that challenges those beliefs. And it contributes to the formation of echo chambers and reinforces the polarization that we were talking about. There's also a situation where selective exposure can sort of be by accident. In other words, if you are only viewing certain types of things in certain spaces, and it's not necessarily you're out seeking it, it's just like this is what interests you, or this is the discipline you're spending time in, then you might find yourself selectively being exposed. And you can see this sometimes in the humanities and the social sciences, where the papers that are making it through peer review have a left bearing. And so you can find yourself sort of, in some sense, accidentally getting a left picture of the world because that space is populated by left-leaning contributions. So and this happens, like I said, sort of by accident. You didn't necessarily plan on that, and you may not even know it's happening. But and so selective exposure is typically sort of intentional, even if you don't know you're doing it. But it can also be kind of accidental. So I'll finish with that, and we'll pick up on another episode tomorrow, and we'll bring in some more factoids and scientific phenomena. And if you like this podcast, listen to it every day or don't. It's up to you. And hopefully you like these little bites. And then don't forget to listen to our main podcast, the Outrage Overload podcast, which is a long form podcast about a lot of these issues where we talk with scientists, experts, authors, and others. So see you tomorrow. This is day 2. Tomorrow we'll have another episode.